I am so excited because you are joining us for our local parks maintenance successful applicant webinar. And I want to just say congratulations to you. I am Marguerite Austin. I am a section manager here with the Recreation and Conservation Office. And we're going to be going over quite a bit of information today. It's a short time frame because we don't want to keep you too long. And if you think you missed something or we're going too fast, it is being recorded. So you'll have an opportunity to listen to it again. Or as I always encourage folks, if you're not sure about something, feel free to call your grants manager, and they typically can help answer any questions or anything that we overlooked. This morning, we have a number of things on our agenda, which include just a brief introduction to who we are. We'll talk about the grant agreement, about implementing your projects, some of the design considerations. We'll talk about using Prism Online and then project closeouts. And of course, we'll want to do a little bit of a wrap up. And then we're going to talk a little bit about reimbursements and then do our best to try to make sure we answer the questions that you have that you'll need to help you to get moving forward. And I just want to make sure everybody knows you're more than welcome to ask questions. We'll try to go through some materials and pause, and just in case there's a question at the end of one of those little segments, we'll do our best to give you a chance to actually do that. And this was just a quick reminder. I know most of you are very familiar with using Zoom nowadays, but it's just a reminder, just in case you're not sure where the buttons are. Don't forget, you can just open your participants list, and usually at the bottom of it, you'll see 3 dots. You can click on those 3 dots, and that's the dots that are reflected here. It allows you to raise your hand, mute or unmute yourself, and typically that helps us to keep things moving forward and as quickly as we can. So just a quick reminder about how to do those. The Recreation and Conservation Office is a small state agency, and we serve or strive to be an exemplary partner that provides statewide leadership. We provide funding to protect and improve the best of Washington's natural and outdoor recreational resources, not just for ourselves, but for future generations as well. That's a big part of who we are. As a small state agency, we provide grants for recreation, for conservation, for education, for salmon recovery. And those grants also include funding for things like planning and what many of you or all of you are here for today, and that's grants for maintenance activities as well. I just want to say congratulations to everybody because you are here or were invited here because you were part of a very competitive group. And as part of that competition, you had a chance to be successful. So congratulations to you. You made it through the process. There were 214 applications. And I just threw in this map to give you just a little bit of an idea of what the competition looked like. There were projects from all across the state. And what you see reflected in blue were those projects that represented those requesting funds for Tier 1. The yellow reflects those that requested funding for Tier 2. And as you can very well tell, a lot of competition for both categories. I thought you'd be interested just to see what the funding competition was like. I shared a little bit of this in the email that I sent out to you. But Tier 1 multi-site projects, there were 157 projects requesting over 13 million. And we are awarding almost 3.4 million for that category. And then for the single site projects, we're awarding about 1.4 million to 14 projects in a competition that involved 57 applicants. So very competitive grant cycle, and can't thank you enough for just jumping in. And you've done so many things in a very quick and tight time frame. And I know it's rush, but hopefully we will be able to make this work for all of you, and we'll have a successful spending plan in place to help you to get going very quickly. Grant managers, I know that you hear us talk about grant managers. This is just a little visual to kind of let you know some of the faces of those people that you will be working directly with. You have talked to several of the grant managers, and they are all poised. Some have joined us today, but they're all poised and ready to do their best to try to get your agreements written and out the door as soon as possible. So that's one group of people that's going to help you. Before we go much further, though, I'm going to ask a couple of other folks if they would just take a moment to introduce themselves, because they are going to help us with today's webinar. So we'll start with our finance team and ask those members if they would take a moment to just introduce themselves, and they're going to be sharing with you more in a little bit. So go ahead, Doran.
My name is Doran Lauer. I'm a fiscal analyst too, and I'll be showing you how to get reimbursed for your expenses.
Awesome. Mark, are you going to introduce yourself?
Well, I can never tell you no, Marguerite. Yeah, I'm Mark Girositis, the Chief Financial Officer at RCO, and I'm here to back up Doran as needed.
Awesome. Mark is also the one that's making sure that all of the funding gets put in place once we give him the actual dollars. So that's one reason why we've been so insistent that everybody complete and submit their spending plans, because that will tell us exactly how much money we need to allocate to each project proposal for the first year, and then hopefully be able to allocate monies to some of you for that second year as well. I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk to you very briefly about the grant agreement. And if you recall, one of the things that I did is we sent out the grant agreement to give you an idea of what that looks like. So most of you saw the PDF that we had attached, and we just attached that file. For those of you that have participated in grant programs with the Recreation and Conservation Office in the past, you already know that agreement is very similar to what we typically used. We took out some things that are not relevant because they don't relate to a maintenance project, but for the most part, it's stuff that you've seen before and the kinds of things that makes it easy for us to enter into our contractual relationship. This is the legal contract between your organization and the state of Washington Recreation and Conservation Office, who's administering this grant. It's a legal binding agreement that awards funds for these public purposes. And this just sets forth the terms and conditions for your organization in terms of what you need to do. There's a project description that will go into each contract, and it's right in this area. It's customized for every single project because it reflects the work that you said you were going to do and the amount of money that we're providing to you to do that work. So it explains the purpose and the work you hope to accomplish. You'll see a period of performance, and that's listed right here. And as you know, we'll say it over and over again, for those of you that have a tier 1 project, we are shooting for your start date to be December 1st, and then your end date will be June 30 of 2024. And then if you have a 2-year spending plan, we hope to be able to allocate the additional money and extend your agreement at the latter part of June, early July. Each agreement also includes a list of what's eligible in terms of things that we will reimburse for, and that's typically going to be deferred maintenance. And for those of you that have tier 2 projects, you'll also possibly see things like cultural resources, permits. Some of you requested funds for administration of your grant, and those will be eligible costs that's listed in that eligible activities or the scope activities report. There's reporting requirements for all of your agreements, and it's going to include information about the reporting, and I'll show you some milestones here in just a moment. And then there's some standard terms and conditions. It's basic language that we include in all of our agreements to talk about how the agreement works, if there's a dispute, what we expect you to do, that we only give our grants on reimbursement basis. So it just lays out some general rules, some general guidelines for all of us to follow. So one other thing that the scope activities tells you as well, it's kind of like an outline of what budgeted items have been approved for your project. For example, some of you requested funding for purchasing or replacing equipment for maintenance activity. And so you would see that highlighted in your budget or in your contract when you get those contracts or those agreements. So just a general idea of what your agreement is going to look like. The next thing I wanted to just talk to you, and this is a little further about the agreement, it's a reminder that the agreement incorporates some of the other materials that you provided. For example, if you provided some cultural resources documentation and responses to question, that becomes part of your overall project application, and it's kind of incorporated into your agreement. You remember that we've asked all of you to do a spending plan. That becomes part of your documentation. And then there's the local parks maintenance application authorization, or some of you may have done an electronic signature as well. All of those documents basically get incorporated as part of the overall packet for your agreement. And this is the materials that we use to help make sure we understand your scope of work and what we're writing when we're writing up your agreement description. In the standard terms and conditions, a lot of folks will take a few minutes to have their attorneys to take a look at it. There are a few sections that we highlight. A couple of things is, the biggest is you do not, we require compliance with the terms of your agreement, of course. There are always some risk and some consequences about it. And we don't expect this to happen. We never want to have to terminate an agreement or any of those things. But the big part about it is what you said you were going to do in terms of the maintenance work that you plan to accomplish, the fact that you're going to make sure you've got cultural resources clearance before you start any of that work. Those are the kinds of things that you want to make sure you stick with so that we don't have a reason to suspend or terminate your agreement. The other part is, of course, making satisfactory progress and trying to do your best to meet your milestones. And if you run into a hiccup, you can let us know. Unfortunately, the one milestone that we can't change or do a whole lot about is that end date, which is June 30 of 2024. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as just quick reminders, especially when you hear about the financial part. It's a reminder that you have to incur your cost within that fiscal year and use it. And I think we tried to do a good job of explaining that when we sent out the spending plans to you. Some of your projects will require you'll maybe hiring some staff members to come on board just for a short term. That's totally fine. Another thing to remind you that your terms and conditions is going to say is it's just going to remind you that if you neglect or there's a breach, we would require that you repay those funds. So we want to make sure that as you're going along, if there's something that pops up and you're not sure about, check in with your grant manager. We'll huddle to make sure that we are giving you the best possible information so that you don't run into issues that would jeopardize your project proposal. Most of you, this is just standard language and you're used to it in contract. But for those of you that might be entering agreement with us for the first time, we just wanted to highlight a couple of those things for you. Also, one of the crucial ones is you'll see this last bullet on the slide says RCO is not responsible for cost after termination or ending agreement. Money that you spend or things that you buy after the end date of your agreement are not eligible for reimbursement. So one of the things you'll want to make sure is that you get all of your expenditures, all of the work done, all of the things that equipment that you're ordering. You want to make sure you get all of that in place before June 30 of whichever year your spending plan says, so that we can make sure we can reimburse you. We can make the payments after June 30. It's just that you have to have incurred all of the cost and get those bills taken care of and done in a very short time frame. And then one of the things about issuing agreements, we will start issuing agreements. Essentially, we'll start this next week. We asked everybody to get their spending plans into us this Friday. And the reason we've been pushing is because that will help guide us around how much money goes into every agreement. And so the agreements are going to be issued as quickly as possible. We have, and we requested, and most of you have provided the appropriate routing information so we know who's authorized to sign your agreement, who's going to review it before it's signed, and then we will get it routed appropriately, and then you'll sign it. And I usually try to sign agreements as soon as they are returned. So the electronic process works really, really well for us. If for some reason that doesn't work for you, just let us know. And I know that our administrative team member, Monica Atkins, is always willing and available to try to help to facilitate getting that agreement signed as quickly as possible. That signature authorization is extremely important. It's one thing that our attorneys require. So we want to make sure we do our routing and you have a chance to review it before you send it off to the people that actually are responsible for signing it. And some of you may require city council or county commissioner approval before you actually can sign the agreement. If that's the case, please make sure you're getting that scheduled so that you can get it returned to us as quickly as possible. One of the other things I want to just remind you that your agreement covers is your deliverables. So these are the things that you are asked to provide to our CO as a result of what you said you were going to do. So for example, if you said you were going to do cultural resources work as part of a tier 2 project, and your special conditions say you need to provide a survey to us, you're going to make sure that you get that survey work done, submit it to us. All of those of you that are tier 1 participants that were asked to provide an inadvertent discovery plan, as soon as we get those plans out to you, we're asking you to sign them, upload it so you can go ahead and get busy with your work. That's what we mean by the deliverables. If you're required to get a permit and you're going to bill us for the permit as well, you need to provide that before you ask us to pay for it. So you want to be doing everything you can to get things like that in place as quickly as possible. And of course, the other thing you're going to be doing is the deferred maintenance work that you've agreed to do, as well as for those of you that included purchasing some equipment. So the agreement is not complex. It has a lot in it, but it's a basic agreement that just kind of lays out what your responsibilities are, as well as what our responsibilities are in terms of the agreement as well. So I'm going to pause and take just a break and see if there are questions that I need to try to answer before we move on to the implementation phase. So it looks like there is 1 or 2 questions in our chat, and let's see if I can answer this. And hopefully there are team members that are available in case it's something that I need to follow up with. So this question, and this came from Deb, says, our city submitted a tier 2 project, but the example schedule shows the project starting January 1, 24 and ending June 30, 24. But the cost was planned for 2025. So should we contact you or our rep to get this squared away? Actually, no, you don't need to do anything, Deb. This is the way it works. If you had a project proposal, all of the agreements, I'll say this first, all of the agreements we're issuing will have an end date of June 30, 2024. If you submit an agreement and you submit your spending plan and you were planning on spending $3,000 before June 30 of 24, that's what your agreement is going to say. Your agreement is going to say June 30 is your end date. We expect you to spend $3,000 and we ask you to submit your appropriate reports right around June. If you can get them in, the sooner you get them in. We ask for a progress report in March just to verify that you're moving along nicely. And then if everything is going nicely, then we will extend your contract when we get authorization for the funds. We'd extend your contract all the way through 2025 to allow you to get the rest of your project done. And when we do that extension, it will also include those additional funds because we're only going to write our agreements for the amount of money that people expect to spend in year one. It's probably one of the most complicated scenarios that we have, but if you have questions about it, by all means, contact your grants manager or myself, and we'll make sure we do our best to answer you. So yes, even if you are planning on spending your money in year two, then those of you that are spending in year two and you have nothing that you're spending in year one, your agreements would be issued based on when your spending is going to start. So we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go, and hopefully we'll get enough clarity for you so you'll know how that part works. The next question that I saw in the chat was, we have a tier one that involves repairing and painting and surfacing or working on a basketball court. And they say it would be more feasible to do that work in July to September because of the weather, which totally makes sense. And the question is, how likely is it that the money will be available in the 24-25 fiscal year? And the money is available. It is, we just don't get access to it until the beginning of the fiscal year. But you should put in your spending plan that you plan to do that work in the fall so we know how to allocate our money. Mark, is there anything else that you want to add about money availability for year two?
No, but I do think it's important to understand that we've got a year one amount, we've got a year two amount, and we're trying to wrangle all of these agreements so that we don't have anybody left out in the cold. So complete your spending plan, stick to your spending plan, and then we should get everything addressed. I mean, everything covered. So thanks for outlining that, Marguerite.
Thank you. And then probably one of the most frequent questions we've been getting lately is where people are contacting their vendors and suppliers, and they're asking for materials or trying to purchase goods. But there's a question about whether or not your piece of equipment or your goods and services are actually going to be available to you before June 30 of 2024. If there is any doubt in your mind, I would recommend that you put those costs into year two rather than year one, and push your vendor to get them delivered to you as early in July as is possible. And the reason we say that, because if you order something, you don't get it, you can't show reimbursement for us that it was expended by June 30, then unfortunately, we will not be able to reimburse you for that. That's one of the trickiest parts about having these grant funds in our operating budget. We typically have the flexibility to allow you to spill over, we don't have that flexibility. So you want to make sure that everything you're ordering and purchasing, that you get it before June 30. Yes, you can write your check on July 15 and get everything done so you can submit your bill to us before the August 15, but you want to make sure you've got everything so that you can go ahead and pay your vendor, but you need delivery for all of your materials. You need the work to be done by June 30. Hopefully that answers some of those initial questions, and I'm going to continue on, and we'll pause again to see if there are other questions that we need to address as well. So moving right along, it's about project implementation. So this is the part where we share a little bit of information to hopefully help you to successfully manage your project proposal. So keep in mind, first of all, that your grant was evaluated and scored based on the scope of work that you said that you were going to do. You told evaluators, hey, this is what we want the money for, this is what we plan to do. So in order to maintain the integrity of the process, we ask that you do everything you possibly can to follow through on what it is you said you were going to do, particularly in light of the fact that there are people that didn't score quite as high as you, but they may have been hoping to get those grant funds. And if you start to ask us to take things out of your scope of work or modify your scope of work, it's not really fair to the ones that might have fallen just a little bit below you. So do all you can to try to make sure you are completing the work as you proposed it in your agreement. And if something isn't working out right, contact your grants manager, and that way you can come up with a strategy that hopefully will help you to do as much of the approved work as is possible. Timely completion of your project is so very important. As you know, these contracts are being written for just a few months, and we want you to do everything you can to accomplish what you're supposed to in those first few months. And then we have every intent to extend those of you that have money coming in the second part of the session, and we'll get your agreements issues or your extensions done and that additional money to you as quickly as we can. Please keep in mind, if you don't meet the milestones are the timelines that are spelled out in your agreement. That's potentially a breach of your contract, and we could cancel your contract. And we don't want to do that to anybody. Our goal is to see you be successful through this project. So any little hiccups you run into, contact us right away. We'll let you know what the options are, if there are any options, because we totally want you to do well. The next little thing is to talk about those milestones, because we keep talking about meeting your milestones and performing. And for those of you that received grants, these milestones are essentially key timelines or benchmarks that are built into your contract. Some milestones are called critical. You have to make sure you meet those. Others, we have a little tiny bit of leeway, but the biggest part of this is making sure you do everything you can to meet your timeline. In all of your agreements, you'll see a start date. And for those of you that have a Tier 1 project, your start date is planned to be December 1st. For those of you that have a Tier 2 project, your start date is planned for January 1st. The primary reason it's planned for January 1st is because we are in the midst of doing our tribal consultation and consultation with the Department of Historic Preservation and Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And there is a comment period that we have to adhere to. So we are doing our best to try to get that work done as quickly as we can. We're hoping it's done by mid-December, and then that will tell us what conditions, if there are any special conditions that would need to go into your agreements in order to allow you to satisfy the cultural resources portion of your project proposal. So the milestones are part of your agreement. They tell when your project can begin. They tell the performance period, basically your timeline for getting things done. They reflect what was presented in your application. And if you recall, we try our best to go with when we sent out the information to invite you to this webinar, we provided for you the milestones that will be placed in your agreement. So you know already in advance that for your milestones, your first progress report is going to be due in March. We want to check on how things are going. It's not a complicated report. It's short, just a couple of sentences. We just want to make sure things are going smoothly. The other thing that we will ask you to do in March, at the end of March, is a first bill. So if you've purchased equipment, if you contracted and gotten cultural resources work done, we want you to bill it. We're trying our best not to let you lose any of the money. So we're going to be encouraging you to bill us a little bit more frequently than some of you are used to. So first bills will be due in March. And then we'll have a couple of more months of work done, and then it'll be time for you to submit your final bills. So just wanted to make sure everybody was keeping track with these timelines, because they are way tighter than anything that we've had to manage before. One of the other things to remember is you may not bill us for cost that you incur before the project's start date. So in particular, for those of you that have tier 1 projects, remember you cannot start before that start date that's put in your agreement. So that's one of the reasons why we are really pushing you to get things back to us as quickly as we can so we can get your agreements out so you can start on those projects right away. For those of you that have tier 2 projects, these are projects where you may have some cultural resources requirement. Those are, if you are working on permits or cultural resources, that's something that we do allow as eligible pre-agreement cost. However, we caution you from jumping ahead and spending money on it before we tell you specifically what it is that we are going to need. So if you already know and that you've got to do some kind of survey, yes, you could potentially get started on that. We don't know that yet. We're waiting to hear from those cultural resources experts to tell us what they need from you. But as soon as we learn that, we're going to put that in your agreement and get your agreement out the door so you can hop on it and get started. So we would just, we kind of caution you from starting too soon, because we don't want you to spend money on cultural resources activities that are not required. Let's see, the one other thing is progress report. Within your milestones, and you notice that we talked about a first progress report is going to be due in March. These are milestones, have dates in it that are inserted where we want you to just give us a little report to kind of tell us how you're doing, what you're doing, and to help us to keep track, to know if there's potential issues that are coming up for you, and to help you to just keep your project moving along. So PRISM progress reports are required. The deadlines are outlined in your agreement. When those projects, they help us to monitor progress, they help us to know if there's challenges, and help us to know if you have something that we need to be discussing. And if you need more information about completing them, by all means, get in touch with us. By the way, when you submit a progress report, PRISM automatically creates a PDF file of that particular report. So we have a record of exactly when it was submitted and then when the grant manager reviewed it and pushed it forward. And we have a milestone that says when you submit a report, we need to be able to respond back to you that it was accepted and approved within a certain number of days. One other thing that we will ask everybody to do is what's called a final report. So if your project completely ends in June of 2024 and there's no extension because you spent all of the money, you will be doing your final report in June or early July and August. If you happen to have a project that we are going to extend your agreement, you will have to submit a bill, and then we will ask for the final report in August of the next year. So upon completion of a project, this report is required to actually document everything that was done, and it should match up with what you said in the agreement. And you can start your report at any time, but it has to be submitted after your final bill. So you'll see very specific milestones. Get your report in by this date, or get your bill in by this date so that you can submit that final report. It's all part of the project and the closeout process. So we just want to make sure that we're tracking with you and that that part is actually happening and taking place on time. For those of you that do have cultural resource requirements, just a quick reminder, we do this because we're following the executive order that requires us, because we are providing grant funds, all of our projects, we have to evaluate them for impacts to cultural resources. We worked with and negotiated with everybody to make sure that the scope of work included in Tier 1 projects did not require additional work. And so we're just going to be asking you to sign a plan that if while you're working, if something comes up, you know exactly what to do. And then for those of you that are Tier 2, we'll be spelling out for you very specifically what you need to do. We've already initiated our consultation for those Tier 2, and then we hope to be able to share with you what any additional work that might be required. And then that way it'll allow you to get moving forward as quickly as possible with your project proposal. So I'm going to pause for just a second to see if there's any questions that we haven't covered yet, things that people have. And I didn't see anything in the chat. I'm checking my participants list to make sure there wasn't something on that list where somebody had raised a hand or whatever. I don't see anything there. And then I'll see if I can answer this question. The one question that I saw that's been popped in says, similar to the basketball resurfacing, our Tier 1 project involves some seal coating, which is weather dependent. And it looks like the first invoicing would be in March, and the asphalt will likely be viable until mid-April, and you'll finish the project before June. You've kind of spelled out your timeline. So for example, when we ask for that first billing, one of the things we ask for is a progress report, so you can give us the status. In that report, you would be saying to us, while the work is planned, we're organized, we're ready to go, we won't actually be able to do the surfacing until April, and we'll know and not expect a bill for you. So that's one of the reasons those progress reports are so important. So thank you for asking that and raising that comment, Paul. I was going to do a little bit on the money talk, but I'm actually waiting for our policy specialist to join us. But I'll just briefly mention this to you, and you may have some questions and we can cover it in more detail. Remember, for everybody, we asked you when you spelled out your spending plan, and thankfully the Port of Kennewick, I'm just using theirs as an example, and they laid out exactly what they were going to do. They included their grant amount, and their plan actually shows spending all of their funds this first year. Because their spending plan is laid out, our intent is to write their agreement for the full grant amount knowing that they are on a very aggressive timeline and their goal is to get everything done all at once. If you spent, and I saw somebody else's spending plan, and all of their spending is in year 2, excuse me, they're purchasing a piece of equipment. They know that the equipment will most likely not be here before June. So they are pushing their vendors and everybody that they're talking to about what they want to ensure they get it, and they get that equipment maybe in July of the coming year or sometime in the next year. Because of that, we will not be issuing an agreement for them immediately. We will wait, prepare their agreement, and issue their agreement in June of 24, because their spending plan says we're not going to spend any money this year, so there's no need for us to issue an agreement until we have money for year 2. So just wanted to say that. So just in case you're in a situation where all of your money is being spent in that second year, will allow you, depending on what it is, you may not be getting an agreement until that second year. And we tried to explain that in the materials we shared with you about a week ago. Design considerations. Just a brief reminder for those of you that are doing projects. Most of you, this is just a reminder that the work that you do, one of the things that RCO always tries to encourage sponsors is to do their best to be environmentally responsible and use those kind of products to the best of your ability as you do your work. Drought-resistant vegetation, native plants and vegetation, if you're doing any work associated with landscaping, recycled materials, if that's possible and it's suitable for what you're doing, trying to make sure the lighting that you're putting in is the lighting that will last a long time if you had to replace a bulb or replace something. If you're doing something that has a rain garden in it, it's just a reminder what you're doing and how you're taking care of the resources in our environment. And so that's one of the things that we just wanted to do a quick reminder to you, because we like to encourage folks to do the best that they possibly can in protecting the environment. Sponsors are required to comply with the terms of their agreement, comply with applicable health, fire, safety, and building codes. We included an option if you needed to have short-term workers and needed to do liability insurance, that we made it as an eligible cost so that you would make sure you took care of everything you needed to in terms of safety. We want to make sure you provide all of the required cultural resource documents and/or permits if that's applicable for your project. And then any of you that have to do anything associated with accessibility, and remember, we allowed accessible upgrades as part of these maintenance projects. If you are, we want to make sure you're complying with current accessibility standards. And then one of your responsibilities is to provide all of the appropriate closeout documents. So when we talk about accessibility, our projects need to be as accessible as possible. And I think that's what some of you were doing, is coming and saying, hey, we have some things that are accessible, but we have a couple of things that is just still not working right, or it needs a retrofit, or it was accessible back in the day. It doesn't meet current standards. We ask that you look at everything, make sure what you're doing, how you're designing, pay attention to cross slopes, to grades, to all, so that the work that you do in these, as you're taking care of your deferred maintenance, that that work can stand the test of time and it meets current standards. Planning for that kind of change or improvements is really important. Make sure, if you're not certain about the dimensions or measurements or something that you need to do, check in with somebody that might be able to help you out. Sometimes we can direct you to a project that we know that has been successfully built or designed, that you might follow their guidance. And one of the reasons this is so important is it's not just to make it accessible for us or ourselves, but thinking about our aging population, children with disabilities. It's like so many ways it's used, even for folks whose steps have just slowed down a little bit, or people that might have an interim disability. All of the things that we do, the best work you can do is to make it accessible, do a good job, and when it's done right, it's hardly noticeable. So that's one of the things we want to do. We want it to be as seamless as is possible. And then we get this question a lot about what needs to be accessible. And when it comes to your outdoor recreation facilities, we encourage you to do your best to make everything accessible. From parking, where there's clear standards, clear guidelines, access to your picnic areas, to the sport courts, your routes to various facilities. There's a lot of great play structures or modifications for play structures. A couple of you I know have projects where you're trying to replace where you've had pea gravel or some other kind of surface, and you're trying to fix that surface so that it provides the safety that you need for your play equipment. And then, of course, thinking about trails and walkways and making sure you don't have barriers to those that are trying to use your recreation sites. So anything you can do and anything that we can do to help, we have resources on our webpage, and we are happy to talk to you about your deferred maintenance and what we might be able to do to help you to get it to be the right accessible guidelines. Don't make assumption that you don't have to worry about it now. Somebody else is going to do it. If you are in there and you're trying to fix something as part of your project, if you can get that taken care of and make sure it's accessible, change out handbars if the ones you have no longer meet the needs, or you have gates that are too narrow and you need to widen them a little bit, do your best to try to address those issues now. It's better to do it now than later on when it costs even more to try to get it fixed. Guidelines are available. Our website has a number of resources that you can access that tells you a little bit about what you need to do for accessibility. And then there are links to the access board. And if you have questions, of course, we always say contact your grants manager. Just a quick reminder to folks that most of you have already signed up for PRISM, and you already probably have your secure access. But if you have not, I just want to make sure that you are in touch with us, because we will do everything we can to help you. PRISM Online is an extremely important resource and tool for us. PRISM stands for Project, PR, Information, the I, System, the S and the M. That's how we came up with the name. It's basically stands for our Project Information System. And if you're not familiar with it, some of you have joined on and you're going to be responsible for submitting the progress reports and the bills. If you're not sure, there are some video tutorials that are available on our webpage, or you can call your grant manager and ask them if they are willing to walk you through so you know how to complete it. But in order to access it, you definitely need to get a PRISM password and code and secure access so you can log in. And I think most of you did that when you put together your application. But if you're new to the system, by all means, you want to go ahead and try to take care of that as soon as you can. This is our web page, or like our front web page, and you'll see right up at the top, there's something that says PRISM Login. You can click on that, and that will tell you a lot about PRISM and will help you to get set up, get your passwords, and get logged on. We do caution you that PRISM works best on specific browsers. What it doesn't do very well on is the old Internet Explorer. And I know a lot of you have gone away from that. And so we just wanted to make sure you knew that and knew how to access that database. When you log on, it'll ask you for your username and your password. And if you don't have one, you can create an account just straight off of that page, but you go through the secure access where you've added us as one of your sites that you plan to visit. And then after you log in, a lot of times you will see a list. Like this is a list of all of the local park maintenance projects that have been approved. And this list kind of shows you can find your project by putting in the project number, putting in the project name. Sometimes it defaults to whatever it is, the last things you were using. And so it's a great way to just get in, search for, and you can see not just your project, but you can see other projects as well. Once you get into a project, you'll notice there's a little arrow. And if you click on that arrow, it expands, and then you can choose what it is you want to look at. Are you looking at application materials? Do you want to check your attachments to see who the people are that your agreement needs to be routed through? Do you want to look at some other details related to your project or something else that you might want to look at? This gives you that option to be able to look at those other materials, to look at your application, to look at what was included in your agreement, because as soon as you sign your agreement will be one of those attachments. So just one way for you to access information. And this is not just available to you. We make this available to all the folks that are interested in looking at the grants that we've funded. They can go here and see practically anything. And I think the last little part I have to tell you about is it's before you get reimbursement, but I'm going to just mention it briefly because then I want to turn it over so the rest of the time can be for the fiscal team to share some information with you. It's just a reminder that for project closeouts, there's a few steps that you need to walk through. And these are steps that helps RCO and you to document completion of that project. One is it's also a review of your performance. How well did you do? Did you get the work done? And did you complete the scope as written in your agreement? And the whole closeout process helps to document and hold where we hold ourselves accountable as well as you for what we've done with the grant funds that the public has entrusted to us. Steps for closing out a project are not very complicated. We ask you to upload any final documents, and one of the things that we're going to be asking you for is a completed project photo. So if your project was all about buying a nice big fancy piece of equipment, we want to see that equipment and see a photo maybe of some of your staff actually using that equipment. We want to do that because that's the kind of thing that helps us to tell the story if the legislature or someone else asks us about the success of the program. We always want to tell the story just in case they decide to reinstate the program or do it all over again, add money to it or whatever. If you've gone out and you had one thing that some of you can do that would really work well is a before and after picture. You were trying to make some accessibility upgrades. You might take a shot of the restroom stall before and a shot of the restroom stall after you get all of the new handrails, the higher toilet, the new sink, or whatever it is that you're putting in to make it accessible. So before and after pictures work for us as well. And then you'll be asked to submit your reimbursement request before August 15 so that you can make sure you get that final report submitted by the deadline. And that's all part of just getting the project ready for closeout. Tips for those of you for Tier 1, make sure your purchases are complete and your equipment is delivered before June 30. Deferred maintenance work, submit your inadvertent discovery plan as soon as we get it to you. Get your project underway. Make sure you watch for potential impacts to cultural resources. You want to get busy and get the work done. For those of you that are involved in Tier 2, your primary goals is to hop on, completing your cultural resources work, making sure you've got your permits and ensuring that you have what's called an RCO notice to proceed before you start with that maintenance work. That way, you know you have clearance from our agency to get busy. Then you want to make sure you jump in, get your deferred maintenance work done. Most of you will be doing that starting sometime after July of next year, and then getting your equipment purchased before June 30 of 2025. That's part of the goals to help make sure you're a success. It is a tight timeline. I've shared with you projects will get underway in December of this year or January of next year. You'll see that the first fiscal year ends June 30, and we have to get things closed out in terms of submitting all the final bills for that first year by the August 15th. We'll do time extensions and cost changes for those of you that are going into year 2, or new agreements for those of you that are spending all of your money in year 2. And then June 30 of 2025, we have to wrap up all of that work. It has to be completed, and then we'll do the closeout documents for that work. We have a number of resources available to you on our website, and your RCO grants managers are always willing and available and willing to help. And if you have trouble reaching one of them, you can always send me a quick note, and then I'll make sure I follow up with them. Sometimes they're out in the field, and we'll do our best to get you an answer and try to address your questions or concerns as quickly as we can. So just before I turn all things over, are there any questions that we needed to answer? And I think there was a question about the spending plan. And the question was, can the spending plan be modified in the next 4 weeks? Not really, because what we will be doing is we'll be issuing your agreement now, and we have to make a statement to the Office of Financial Management about how much money we are spending this first year. So we don't have a lot of flexibility to be able to change and shift dollars from one year to the next. So it's extremely important that you do your best work, and the plan that you submitted. If you find you need to change something on Monday or Tuesday, you call us right away. But starting on Monday and Tuesday is when we are allocating the funds. So that's why we don't have a lot of wiggle room to give people to modify those plans. So do your best work to try to nail those down by tomorrow. Another question was, they're purchasing some picnic tables, and they're going to be installed in existing areas, but not all of those areas meet accessibility standards. And why don't you, I would just say for that sponsor, why don't you contact your grants manager to talk about if there's something that you need to do to modify. One of the things that's important is if it wasn't already included in your project, we might not have done the cultural resources work for your project to allow you to make those modifications. So I would recommend that you contact your grant manager this afternoon and say, here's what we were planning to do. Now we're not sure, we might need to do something else, so that your grant manager can advise you as to whether or not you are, if something else needs to be done to address cultural resources. Hopefully that helps you and gets you started. Any other questions? Thank you so much, everybody, for your attention. And I'm turning it over to the money team.
Thank you so much, Marguerite. What we're going to talk about is how you get reimbursed, how you come up with the things you need to get done to get the money back for the things that you have spent money on. Marguerite, is our PowerPoint a portion of yours, or?
No, I do not have it. So you
Okay.
you could just open it up and share your screen.
Okay.
Think we've got you listed as a co-host so that you won't have problems presenting.
Okay.
And while he's doing that, are there any other questions that we didn't cover or things that grant managers have people asking them that we might need to share? If so, just let us know. We can put it in the chat. By the way, just a quick poll. How many of you have already submitted your spending plan? If you have, just raise your hand so we can do a quick count of the number of people that have already done it. Oh, wow, good deal. Thanks, Rick. Very good. Oh, yeah, so a number of you have already got that part done. Good deal. I've already seen a couple of your plans. Thank you very much. Know that a couple of them came and I was able to, oh, I've got a good example. Good deal. Thank you, everybody. You can lower your hands now. We kind of have an idea of the number that have done it. And that means a whole bunch of you are going to be frantically working to get them submitted later today or tomorrow. So.
Can you see that PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm sorry, last time I did the presentation, I thought we had them merged, but I guess we didn't this time.
And I'm happy to pop over and help
Yeah,
share
if you can do
screen.
that, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll do that. Everybody can take a 2-minute break.
Do I have to load it into this?
No, do you have it open?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, where'd you go right there? No, that's not you.
All right, does everybody see this presentation?
Hey, Marguerite, it's up, but it
Yeah.
does
Great.
look like there are a couple of blocks on the top of the screen that are covering Washington State.
Oh, yeah. So let me see if we can.
You can fix that one.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. And in your taskbar settings, we're going to say automatically hide. Okay, stay on, okay. And that may go down. And then I'm not sure what to do with this. Let me see. Hopefully they'll be able to see.
All right, well, I apologize for that delay there. So e-billing is a great function that is available to you as sponsors, and it's also available to us as fiscal people to give you feedback on the billings that you've provided. The sections we will cover in this presentation are, first of all, getting paid, and this section 2 is billing RCO. So with moving on with this, the first things first, let's make sure you're set up to be paid by RCO. So as Marguerite mentioned, many of you may have a Prism login. Hopefully you have an SWV number. I know she was talking statewide vendor number. She was talking about getting that out to you. So hopefully that's taken place, or there are directions in the information that you've already provided on how to get that. If you have any questions, OFM is a good site too, ofm.gov, I believe, .wa.gov. So anyway, fine. So how do you do this, you might ask? How do you get started up? You go to OFM's Office of Financial Management to find your statewide vendor payee services website. OFM updates your SWV if needed. Choose a direct deposit or warrant check via email. So you got a statewide vendor number. Once you receive that number, you need to report that number to RCO, your grants manager, so we can enter it into Prism so you can be paid. If you already have a number, let us know what it is, and we will verify and make sure it is in Prism. So down at the bottom are some contact information as far as OFM goes. And this is being recorded if you need to refer back to any of this. You can also call those numbers right there for information. The billing cycle itself, how does that work? Well, we start off with the billing submitted by the sponsor. That's you. And then we receive that from you. And it's possible that if there's something that's not done correctly, it might be returned to you with an explanation of what those situations are. It's just a matter of correcting them. It's no penalty or anything like that. RCO processes the billing once it's good to go. And then the state treasurer releases those funds and you get paid, which is the good part, right? Everything required for billing is entered online into Prism. As Marguerite mentioned, Prism is a very helpful tool. RCO reimburses, you must spend the dollars first. That's an important thing. It's a reimbursable loan, or sorry, it's a reimbursable grant. So you must spend the money first in order to get reimbursed. Payment details. For each payment made, there are these 5 elements. Paid to, I kind of liken that to a check. You know, who you write it out to is who actually got the money from you and you're being reimbursed for paying that. Amount is the amount of that service or good provided by a vendor and or employee. Description. That's a brief statement of what was actually contributed to the project in terms of good and or services. Check document number is a number that's traceable in case there's an audit at some point, which there will be down the road. It may not be during the life of your project, but there are audits that take place and we need to be able to track that money. So we need a good solid number like a check number or a debit card number something along that line. I've got this little toolbar that we didn't know how to get rid of in my way here, so I'm going to try and move that. Transaction date is the last thing. Okay. So bring up your project in Prism Online. That's your first step. Once you get your login and all that taken care of, if you don't already. And then it's going to look something to this effect, your login page. And I think Marguerite showed that earlier. That is your project number right there. This will allow you to see more about your bill, pushing this little down arrow right here. And then you'll have just below that, yeah, I'm not really seeing how to get rid of that. I apologize. Is the billings button right here. All right, so your billing screen. You can enter a billing by clicking on either this menu item in the options menu or down here in the enter a new billing. I'm going to click this one. The 6 steps for completing a billing in Prism Online are, first of all, your billing setup page, and that requires entry on your part. Billing step 2 is the cost pages, which requires entry on your part. Step 3, the billing summary, and step 4, payment information, is just information only on FYI for you, the sponsor, to see more what's going on with your billing. Step 5 are billing attachments, and I like to recommend to people to only do attachments if it's required by your grant manager, or if you come to the top of all of this area right here, are the required areas that you need to complete for your bill. The payment calculation button take us to step 3 with the billing summary. Okay, so billing summary right here, and the payment calculation, nothing to enter here. It provides a summary of information. So it'll talk about agreement totals, this billing, the $1,050 we entered in there, and how much you've been billed to date. Step 4, payment information. You can get to this by clicking on payment calculation whenever you see that, and it'll show you the same information right here. But this is how much you're billed to date. This is how much RCO has agreed to pay. 60/40 agreement between the sponsor and RCO. And then there's the shared approved amount right here, the approved expenditure amount, and the lesser of the two, they take that, and then you're going to get paid that $1,050 on this in this particular situation. Again, there's nothing that you need to enter on here. It's for information purposes to help the sponsor understand where they're at. Also available by clicking payment calculation, as I mentioned, at any time right here. And we'll go ahead and move on to billing attachments. Again, attach billing documents here if required. But for the most part, at least when we review the bills, most of the time attachments aren't required, but and you'll know if you need them attached. Certify and submit. This is the process of approving your billing and, saying that everything you've entered is honest and all that. You're going to click the check for billing errors. And that if there are any errors, it's going to say all pages must be checked off error-free before you can submit. And green checks are good. These all came through affirmatively. And then the red exclamation point needs to be fixed. Errors will be listed in red text at the top right here. So all pages must be checked off. Fiscal staff can't submit a billing with cost detail on a positive payment. So certify and submit. You're going to read and agree in this section right here. Then click the box in the certification field right here, this little box. And then your next step is going to be to click on submit down here. One of two final pop-up boxes shows, and just click OK on that. And then there will be one last pop-up box where you can leave a note if you desire. The next portion is just to click the submit button down there. In review, the 6 steps for completing a billing in Prism Online are billing setup, which requires entry. Step 2, cost pages require entry on your part. Step 3, billing summary, that's information only, as well as step 4, which is information only. And then step 5, billing attachments, again, only use of attachments are required. Step 6, certify and submit. And then if interested, there's a way to download an Excel sheet and upload your billing. Just let us know if you're interested in that. I recommend that if you have more than 10 entries, you consider using that because it can be a time saver on your part. Billing screen, billing in process. See what we have here. If you look down here at the bottom, if it says in process, that means that you've submitted everything correctly. If it says return, that means you'll already know that because you'll receive an email saying that it was returned and why it was returned and what things need to be corrected on it. And if it should say, if it doesn't say in process, you probably haven't submitted it, the certify and submit part. Sometimes people forget that. If it says in process, you're good to go. That means one of the fiscal analysts is looking at it, or maybe they've finished their part and they pass it on to the grant manager to take a look at it. So related, manual 8 reimbursement, that's available on rco.wa.gov. You'll see grant manuals on there. This is a quick link to it. And that will allow you to see the ins and outs of reimbursement, how to get reimbursed. Other billing and reimbursement information, the Billing and Reimbursements Recreation Conservation Office. And ineligible costs, things like ceremonial expenses, alcohol, bad debt expenses, fines and penalties. Those are not going to be things that you're going to be able to put in there to be reimbursed for. Manual 27 discusses ineligible costs on page 10. Manual 8 discusses that on page 13. And use a verifiable payment method. Don't pay in cash or something like that. I mean, no cash or gift card payments. And then in conclusion, our website is rco.wa.gov. Our email is ebilling@rco.wa.gov. These are your fiscal contacts. This is me. I do sponsors that start their name with a number or the letters A through M. And that's my email contact and my phone number. Sabrina does the same job I do. She's been around for quite a few more years than me, and she does N through Z. And Amy Sukut does personal service contracts, and she's available at this email address. Gerald Seed is our lead analyst, and he's available at this email address. So thanks for being here today. I'll check the chat and see if we have any questions. I hope this has been helpful. I went through it kind of quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or any of those people on the prior page. It looks like this is an old question that Marguerite covered already. So I think things are in pretty good shape here as far as questions go. But if there aren't any other questions, then thank you so much for being here today, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Dora. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And if you have questions that we didn't cover, by all means, feel free to give us a buzz. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.